What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the December 30th, 2024 edition of Raw Talk. Megan Morant and Sam Roberts in the studio, opening up the episode, immediately recapping the six-man tag team match from the show. The Judgment Day's Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough getting knocked off by Damian Priest and the Warrior Raiders. Honestly, the most notable match of that match, the most notable part of that match for me, rather. The match itself was good. The crowd reaction was fine. The most notable part of that match for me, the Judgment Day's theme song is no more. They have changed their music. They've officially been def fucking rebelled. And it was inevitable. Honestly, we are lucky that we got that Alter Bridge song for as long as we did. But it was like the last great aspect of that group. And it is no more, unfortunately. So we hear from Judgment Day briefly, or at least a remnant of it, part of it backstage on the show. And I thought it was a replay of the segment that we saw on Raw, where Balor told Liv, like, oh, good luck next week, blah, blah, blah. I think it might have been Raquel, actually. Liv wasn't there. But it was pretty much the same people backstage here. And Balor told Raquel that he hopes Liv Morgan gets 2025 off to a flying start when she faces Rhea Ripley in that last woman standing match for the Women's World Championship. And he says him and JD will get back their tag team titles, and that was pretty much it. So he says, if you listen to Finn, you will win. Now, they were all giddy here because they attempted to attack Damian Priest and get the better of him afterward, but they fucking lost again. They lost. They're not a threat. So it doesn't even really matter what happened afterward. They still lost. So this notion that, oh, if you listen to Finn, you win, they fucking lost. So that doesn't even really ring true. Speaking of Liv and Rhea, they do preview that match for next week in the studio. Last woman standing for the Women's World Championship in the first Raw on Netflix. We then see Final Testament backstage with The Miz. Karrion Kross says that The Miz threw up the white flag a week or two ago by basically surrendering to the Wyatt Six. Miz says that they had a chance to move on and they passed it up. They beat the Wyatt Six in that tag team match a couple of weeks ago, and they messed up their opportunity by going back after the Wyatt Six, that per Karrion Kross's request. But the idea was that they are not done with this war. They merely won the battle, but not the war. And Miz was pissed that they won the match and they're going back to the Wyatt Six. Miz calls himself a shark. He gets all intense and saying, listen, I've been here for over 20 years. I'm more of a shark than I am a fucking minnow, or whatever he said. And Karrion said, that is the Miz that we need to see. And whether you want to do it or not, whether you like it or not, you are coming with us to finish this feud with the Wyatt Six. They're coming back, and we're going to finish this ourselves. So they get all intense. The feud isn't over yet. They replay Dakota Kai versus Zoe Stark from Raw, as well as Io Sky versus Lyra Valkyria. Dakota Kai and Lyra Valkyria moving on in two really good matches, specifically Io and Lyra. Great match from Raw, both moving on to the finals of the Women's Intercontinental Championship Tournament coming up on Raw in 2 weeks. We hear from Lyra Valkyria backstage with, I believe, Jackie Redmond here on Raw Talk. It might have been Kathy Kelly, I don't remember. But Lyra said that she pulled off what many thought would be impossible by beating Io Sky. Now, to be fair, she has beaten Io before. She actually beat Io to advance, I think in the semifinals of the Queen of the Ring tournament earlier this year. So she has beaten Io in tournaments before, not in the finals of the WWE Speed tournament. She lost in that one. Now, I don't really consider that canon personally, but she has lost to Io in another tournament. But anyway, she was going off about how great it was that she beat Io, and she recaps her 2024 coming up short in the finals of the Women's, Queen of the Ring tournament, coming up short in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, coming up short recently in the Battle Royal to Io Sky, coming in second to crown a number one contender to the Women's World Championship. She will not come in second again, she says. And she was interrupted by Damage Control, specifically Dakota Kai and Io Sky. Io says that she really wanted the finals to be her and Dakota Kai, but as long as that championship comes to Damage Control regardless, she does not mind. And Dakota Kai says that she did not come this far to just get this far. And she also intends to walk out of that Raw in 2 weeks, the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion. So really, really good stuff here from Lyra and Io and Dakota Kai, really making that championship feel important. So I'm looking forward to that match in 2 weeks. Those were the two women, a lot like Chelsea Green and Meechin when these tournaments first started, that I thought would benefit the most from becoming or having mid-card championships for the women on these shows. And I love the fact that it's coming down to the two of them in the finals. Two women that are not established on their own, and it really could go either way. The Chelsea Green one was a bit more foregone conclusion that she was going to win. This one could go either way, honestly. I still feel like Lyra should win, but Dakota Kai winning would still be a great moment as well. So they then replay the Otis and Chad Gable matchup, or actually even before that, they preview Dakota Kai and Lyra Valkyria on Raw in 2 weeks. They air a video package, which I believe aired on Raw either this week or last week, highlighting the history between Bob Backlund and Iron Sheik, which I know sounds fucking random, but it was over 40 years ago, the day after Christmas at MSG, actually, I believe, that Sheik beat Backlund to win the WWF Championship over 40 years ago. So I thought it was cool. They aired that here. I mean, it was clearly just to kill time, but I thought it was cool. So that was the when they then aired the Otis-Chad Gable matchup, the final few moments of that, Chad Gable beating Otis on Raw. We see Alpha Academy interacting with LWO backstage, and Alpha. And again, I thought I was watching a replay of something we already saw on Raw earlier in the show. This was not the segment where New Day came in and dissed LWO, which is what they've been doing for weeks now. Because the New Day accepted the challenge from the LWO, or specifically Ray, for a tag team match, and they didn't say who his partner would be. Now, I don't know if that's next week. They didn't specifically confirm that. I would imagine it would, because there's a possibility that the partner could be Pentagon Jr., Penta El Cero Miedo, whatever the fuck you want to call him. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. But no, this was a separate segment. We saw Alpha Academy backstage with LWO, kind of offering them their assistance, their help, their services in case they wanted help with the New Day. And Ray says, they're good, thank you, though. And then Pete Dunne shows up. And he's like, can you help me get rid of the Butch shit or take care of R-Truth? And Ray's like, no, I'm not going to help you with that. Zelina Vega calls him Butch. And Pete, then they all start laughing at him. And Pete Dunne says, he tells them to watch their backs. What a dumb fucking segment. Like, I like Pete Dunne. The Butch stuff I get they're doing to get him heat. But he lost to R-Truth a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, he did stand tall over him on Raw this week, but they didn't have a match. They were going to. He attacked him before it could happen. So clearly the feud is continuing. Why? Who gives a shit? It's a waste of fucking time. Have him beat R-Truth and move on. Is he really gaining anything from feuding with R-Truth, aside from getting on television, which is nice, but that's like the bare minimum. So are we getting a Rey Mysterio Pete Dunne match out of this? Like, I thought this was weird. They recap the Ludwig Kaiser Sheamus segment from Raw, which was fine, but it's like, are we going back to Kaiser and Sheamus again, dude? I know it was Kaiser who was responsible in storyline for putting Sheamus on the shelf at Survivor Series. I get it. But it's like we've seen them face off a fucking million times, it feels like, this year alone, not even counting the other matches and six-mans and shit they've had over the years, and dating back to 2022 and 2023. In 2024 alone, they've had a shit ton of singles matches. Why are we revisiting this? And not only that, so we heard from Sheamus backstage afterward here on Raw Talk, and he tells Kathy Kelly that, I think it was Kathy Kelly, he tells Kathy Kelly that he's cleared officially for the first time since Survivor Series after being injured in storyline, breaking his rib or ribs on that show. He calls 2025 his year. But then he also addresses Braun Breaker and saying, we got to give the fans the match they want to see and all this other shit. I want to win the Intercontinental Championship, which I'm thinking is all great and wonderful and whatnot, but it's like we already fucking saw that match. They make it sound like they haven't done the match. Now, granted, it was interrupted both times they did it. They did it on Raw over the summer, but again, as recently as last month, in November, they did the match, and it was interrupted by Kaiser. But it's like, Sheamus, you fucking lost, buddy. You got pinned in the triple threat at Survivor Series. What unfinished business do you have with these two men? Are they doing another triple threat match? Don't get me wrong, the triple threat was great at the pay-per-view. But what are we doing here? This sounds like wash, rinse, repeat. These guys have got to move on. Breaker wasn't even on the show. Gunther wasn't on the show again. Like, what is next for these champions? I would like to know that. To wind down here, they run down the Slam and 7 for the night. They also replay the closing segment, the great exchange, the excellent exchange between CM Punk and Seth Rollins before their match on the first Netflix Raw next week. They preview said matchup. They preview Punk versus Rollins before running down Sam Roberts' top 5 stars of the night, including Drew McIntyre, Lyra Valkyria, Chad Gable, Seth freaking Rollins, and Dominic Mysterio. This entire episode of Raw Talk had some decent stuff on it, but it was basically as Raw was on Monday, which I thought was an overall fun show. Basically one giant infomercial for Raw on Netflix next week. So they hyped some stuff up, they previewed some matches, as well as the IC title women's tournament finals in 2 weeks. That's not next week, but, they made that feel important with that Lyra, Io, Dakota exchange that I talked about. So yeah, I thought it was fine. Not a must-see episode of Raw Talk at all, but I thought for what it was solid. Now, as I've said before, a couple things here. This is probably my final Raw Talk review if they continue doing the show, which I'm sure they will, on Peacock. And everything's all over the place, by the way. Shit is still airing on TV with NXT and SmackDown, but they have Raw on Netflix, Raw Talk on Peacock, the pay-per-views on Peacock, the fucking Raw library is nowhere, some of it's on YouTube. It's a fucking mess right now. I assume they are still going to continue to do Raw Talk. They're not going to promote it on Raw. They never really do anyway. But why would they promote it on Netflix for another separate streaming service? They're not going to do that. So I imagine the show goes back to being 30 minutes long, 25 minutes, 33 minutes, whatever, depending on the week. I'm just going to watch the highlights on social media. I've been reviewing the show now for 5.5 years, and it's been fun at certain points, not so fun. But I'd rather focus on other content here in the channel. So this will probably be my final Raw Talk review. I might continue doing it. I might check out the show next week, but not necessarily review it, just to see what the show looks like coming off the Netflix debut. And like I said, all the interviews they do for the most part on Raw Talk and SmackDown Lowdown end up on their YouTube channel anyway. I just review it here on the channel just because I've done it for the last 5.5 years. I actually did not review Talking Smack and Raw Talk when they first did the shows on the WWE Network many years ago. I would watch them after a while. Raw Talk I never really watched. I didn't give a fuck about Raw Talk. But SmackDown, or rather the Talking Smack show, was really, really good. Hosted by Daniel Bryan and Renee Young for a while. I watched that, never really reviewed it though. So I might just go back to doing that if I watch it at all. If it's really just largely recaps and not original interviews that you would get exclusively on the show when they just put it on social media anyway. So just a note on that. But the show might go back to being 30 minutes, like I said, now that Raw is probably going to be longer. SmackDown, that's another thing too. Raw and SmackDown will start being 3+ hours, at least 3 hours next week. Raw might be shorter, it could be longer. We just don't know. But, we'll find out next week. And if the shows are going to go back to being closer to 3 hours, this is just 1 or 2 less shows, less for me to review and watch and review. So just a heads up on that. But I appreciate you guys' support, checking out these episodes over the years. I really appreciate it so much for all the support of the channel just in general. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to this channel for more daily content. And I promise you there is more daily content coming in 2025. Check out the community tab. I occasionally put up questions and polls asking you guys what you want to see here on the channel, what you want to see more of, and just what you want to see in general. So keep an eye out for that as we kind of navigate through the waters of 2025. Until next time, folks, I'm Graham Giason Matthews. Have a very happy new year, and I'll catch your ass down the road.